Thanks everyone for being here this morning. I have just a short statement to make, and then as time allows, I'll take a few questions. Just a few days ago, Oregonians were alerted once again to the chronic failures in the state's foster care program due to ongoing and rampant mismanagement by Oregon's Child Welfare Agency. The Secretary of State audit revealed chaos, indecision, and disorganization, and a failure to fix systemic problems that unfortunately have been known for many, many years, too many years. The audit revealed what one independent observer called a poisonous atmosphere and culture inside the foster care agency. Now, this is no ordinary story of government incompetence. It's about the lives, safety, and well-being of 8,000 Oregon children. 8,000 children. This crisis is a complete betrayal of the public trust to care for some of the most vulnerable kids in this state. This situation is heartbreaking to me and should not be tolerated in the Oregon we love. As leaders and citizens, we owe these kids, families, and caseworkers so much more than what they're getting right now. Now, I'm not going to repeat all the specifics of the audit. They've been well documented in the media. But first, I think it's important to thank Secretary of State Richardson and his auditing staff for a thorough and high quality work on this important and disturbing issue. However, I do differ with the statement made by the Secretary when he released the audit. Secretary Richardson said this wasn't a problem for just the governor or legislature to fix. While I appreciate the sentiment behind this statement, I couldn't disagree with it more. If this isn't a problem for the governor or legislature to fix, why are we even here? Our job is to lead this state. If we won't or don't, who will? If not us, then who? These vulnerable children in Oregon need a voice, and they need a champion. These foster parents need help, and our dedicated caseworkers need a leader that they can trust. The governor of Oregon is the most powerful voice in our state. Unfortunately, Governor Brown, for 3 years, hasn't been using her voice or her power to fix this problem and rescue these vulnerable children. When the audit was released, Governor Brown wouldn't even appear in public to answer questions, offer ideas, or leadership. And most important, wasn't there to reassure foster children and families that help and hope was on the way. Now, as you know, in a few minutes, Governor Brown will make a speech to the legislature and to her fellow citizens about what is important to her in Oregon and what she'd like to see done in the next 35 days. I challenge her to assume responsibility for this problem, to apologize to these children and families for unspeakable tragedies, and to commit this state government, a government she supposedly leads, to fix a foster care program during the 2018 legislative session without further delay. In the very least, we need to identify and commit an initial $50 million this session, ideally going towards creation of a rapid improvement team and corresponding funding for them to immediately stabilize the foster care program. The team's focus should be the rapid implementation of the 24 recommendations outlined in the audit and accepted by the agency for improvement. No more studies, no more task force, no more work groups, no more excuses. It's time to fix the problems. I'll be introducing this as a concept to an amendment of a bill this session. The bottom line is this. Governor Brown, the energy tax can wait. These vulnerable Oregon kids cannot. Based on everything I've seen and heard the past few weeks. There's clearly widespread disagreement among the governor, Senate President, Speaker of the House about the priorities for this session. In my opinion, this is a result of too many people wanting to do too many things with too little support for most of them. So from this dysfunction can emerge an opportunity. Let's put our foster kids first. I propose that instead of debating issues that can wait or lack sufficient support, we dedicate ourselves as legislators over the next 35 days to doing what it takes to rescue these kids, support families, and reform and fund a broken foster care system. The first step is Governor Brown leading in committing this capital to putting foster care reform at the very top of the 35-day agenda. This can bring clarity from chaos. I'm certain what needs to be done can earn bipartisan support to do it, and I stand ready to be a constructive partner in that process. Now, when the Senate President envisioned and championed the creation of annual sessions a few years ago, almost a decade ago now, this foster care crisis was exactly the type of situation he described that meeting every year was designed to address. Senate President Courtney, Speaker Kotex, the energy tax can wait. These vulnerable Oregon kids cannot. And a final word to all dedicated employees in the Department of Human Services who work in the Child Welfare Division. You deserve better. I'm sorry. No public employee should ever experience or feel bullying, intimidation, or verbal abuse for simply doing your job and telling the truth. Even when that truth may be painful for you to share or inconvenient for your boss or elected officials to hear. You're on the front lines every day doing difficult work as public servants. You deserve respect, not intimidation. To each of you, and particularly to those who had the courage to speak truth to power, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And the foster kids of Oregon, thank you. I'll be happy to take questions as time allows.
Representative Buehler,
Yeah.
Why did you feel like this issue was something you personally had to take up this session?
You know, this is an issue where foster kids, some of the most vulnerable kids in this state, are being harmed. And we see report after report after report. They can't wait any longer. There's ongoing lawsuits, there's ongoing challenges. This is exactly what the 35-day session is designed to address.
This has been an ongoing issue. The audit report, from what I sense, should not have come as a surprise. Will the legislature do anything now compared with what it has done in the past?
Yeah. You're right. There's been many reports stretching over 6-10 years, and I think that's exactly why we need to move it to the top of the agenda. We need the governor and the legislature to commit to fixing this problem once and for all. Now, these are some of the most vulnerable kids. I meet them in my office, and the stories are horrific. Kids being nearly starved to death, serially sexually abused, beaten, and even murdered when they're supposed to be overseen by our state's Child Welfare Division. No more studies, no more work groups, no more task force. It's time to fix the problem. It's time for leadership. It's time for leadership from a governor and time for leadership from this legislature.
Do you have any bill picked out for the amendment?
Not yet, but we have several possibilities. Yeah.
For the money you suggest put into this problem, we're going to find out this week how much of a hole there is to fill, but some has been put up between $200 and $300 million. How do you balance that sort of need with these additional priorities, which could cost, 15 or however million dollars you said.
So we'll see what the forecast, the revenue forecast reveals. I think it's next week, February 16th or so. Regardless, this has to be a priority. And if necessary, we need to raise additional funds to pay for it. And if that's increasing the cigarette tax, adding a new vape tax, that's what needs to be done. These vulnerable kids can't wait any longer. These other priorities people are talking about, to me, there is nothing more important than helping the 8,000 most vulnerable kids in this state. The energy tax, all these other things being talked about can wait. These kids cannot.
What would differentiate your $15 million team from another task force or another group that's been convened before?
The Rapid Improvement Team is action-oriented, mission-focused on implementing the 24 recommendations. No more studying, no more talking to people, no more conversations. They are empowered with resources and people and accountability to make those recommendations happen as soon as possible. Now, listen, if we were in the private sector, if we had any business and your customers or people you're responsible for were dying under your care and having multiple lawsuits which you lost, costing you millions of dollars, it would be solved rapidly or heads would roll. That's what needs to be done here. There's no more excuses here. No more excuses.
Representative, I'm not with the media, so if it's not appropriate for me to ask a question, but I am the executive. What? Oh, but I am the executive director of the Cost of Marion County program here in Salem, and I guess I appreciate the passion and the request to make the children a priority. But state statute already does that in 419B.112, where they mandate that every foster child shall be appointed a CASA. And yet the funding that my program receives from the state is less than 10% of what it would take for me to serve every child in our county. And so my question is, why do we continually receive a cut every biennium to our funding when it's a mandate that the legislature themselves felt was so important that they put into state law?
Yeah. I completely agree. It's why I voted against the DHS budget last session and why I'm proposing $50 million to go towards those kinds of programs to help kids. Should ask the governor why she looked to cut the DHS budget. And actually the
funded by DHS. We're a line item in the Ways and Means in the general fund. So, and we took yet another cut this year. I lost $35,000 this year.
I
that
get it.
Equals a staff person for me.
I get it. And that's the kind of resources we need to have out there for our foster kids and foster families.
You're talking about the fact that this has been a perpetual problem for years and years and years. You sat on the, I want to say it was the Human Services Joint Ways and Means Committee last year and heard a lot about this.
Yeah.
Was there anything in this audit that struck you as particularly new or that was revealed to you other than the fact that, the problem still persists?
Yeah. The depth of the disorganization, the intimidation and the bullying of caseworkers and frontline employees, the number of kids who are actually spending nights in hotels, and the chronic understaffing of the agency. I think no one realized that they were short 700 caseworkers. That's way above what was being reported in the past.
Is this strictly a matter of having more dollars thrown at this problem, or is there individual, in your opinion, mismanagement going on and people not doing their jobs, not caring enough, or is this more of a money issue?
Yeah, I think it's both. And I think the audit was clear about it. It's just not money. But there's also a mission problem in the organization. The mission of the Child Welfare Agency should be laser focused on child safety, right? And then on top of that, there's a cultural problem, the cultural problem of bullying and intimidation, even when there's brave frontline employees who are willing to speak up to power and call out what's going on. And certainly then there's details, there's implementation problems. It was clear that we're short on number of caseworkers, and the data management system they have is horribly outdated and dysfunctional. So those are the focuses, right? So it's just not money, but you're not going to fix those problems without more resources. I'm convinced of that. Yeah. Even someone who's fiscally conservative, there's a time when you can cut, and cut's been done too much.
On a practical sense, basically you have 2 weeks if you're going to bring this bill in before committee.
Yeah.
Have you talked to anybody on either the other chamber or the other side of the aisle politically about this issue, and are you getting any traction with them?
Yeah, I'm as I stated, I'm confident that we can get bipartisan support for this. It's long time past that our vulnerable foster kids need help. I think we all feel that. And now we have the evidence outlined, what needs to be done, and the recommendations, and it's clear. And certainly we will seek that kind of bipartisan support.
We're going to get on the floor, so.
Okay, maybe one more question. Dick?
Yeah, for average Oregonians out there who don't follow the legislature and stuff, can you just...
I mean, not everyone is following the Oregon legislature this session, Dick.
I may be wrong on that. Can you simply say what it is that you want to do and why people out there in Central Oregon, Southern Oregon, and Eastern Oregon should be paying attention to this?
Yeah, that's an easy one, Dick. We have 8,000 of the most vulnerable kids in this state who are not being adequately cared for by the state of Oregon. That's all of us. And that's been the case for way too long. Too many kids are suffering, and it's time to fix the problem. No more excuses. These other issues can wait. This needs to be top of the 35-day agenda. Okay, thank you very much.